You already know the title. You already know the abstract. You know this is a retrospective cohort study. You know the sample size, the follow-up period, and the main finding. You've decided this paper is worth your time. Now you open the full paper, and the first thing you hit is the introduction. Most students read the introduction the way they read a news article, from the top down. They follow the text, absorb the background information, and by the time they reach the end, they've forgotten how they started. They close the section feeling vaguely informed, but not really sure what they just learned or why it mattered. That's because they're reading it in the wrong direction. The introduction is not background information. It is not a history lesson. It is not the author warming up before the real paper begins. The introduction is a structured legal argument, and like any argument, it has a conclusion, and everything before that conclusion exists only to support it. Your job is to find that conclusion first. Every introduction in clinical research is built the same way. It moves in 3 stages. The first stage is the established knowledge. What do we already know? Dense with citations. This is the part you skim. The second stage is the problem. What is missing? What gap exists in the literature? This is where the argument builds. The third stage is the rationale. Therefore, this study was designed to answer this specific question. This is the gap statement. Almost always the last paragraph, always the most important sentence in the introduction. Find the gap statement first, then read backward. That is how you read an introduction. Let's apply this to the actual introduction of Bucer 2017, and I mean the actual text, not a summary. Go straight to the last paragraph. The authors write, based on the fact that long-term results, meaning 10 years or more, of dental implants with a micro-rough surface are still scarce. The aim of the present retrospective study was to assess the 10-year survival and success rates of titanium implants with an SLA surface in a large cohort of partially edentulous patients. Stop. That is the gap statement. One sentence. Everything else in the introduction exists to justify it. Now go back to the beginning and read forward and watch how the argument is built. The authors open with osseointegration, the biological principle that makes implants work, discovered more than 40 years ago by 2 European research teams. They introduced the 2 original implant surfaces that dominated the market in the 1970s and 1980s, the machined smooth surface and the titanium plasma sprayed surface. Both showed satisfactory survival rates of 90 to 95% at up to 15 years. Then they shift. In the 1990s, preclinical research showed that moderately rough surfaces produced faster bone apposition and higher removal torque values during early wound healing. These findings moved into clinical studies, most of them mid-term, with 5-year follow-up, showing survival rates greater than 95%. Clearly better than the original surfaces. One of those modern surfaces is the SLA surface, well documented preclinically and clinically, but only up to 5 years of follow-up. And there is the gap, not invented, not inflated, genuinely real. 10-year data on SLA implants in a well-defined population does not yet exist. This study provides it. Every sentence from osseointegration to SLA was building toward that one gap statement. That is what a well-written introduction does, and now you know how to read it. Now, 2 critical reading skills you need to apply to every introduction you ever read. The first is spotting citation chains. When authors cite a study, that citation is a claim. They are saying, this fact is established, and here is the proof. In Bucer 2017, the authors cite references 13 to 21 to support the claim that roughened surfaces produce faster bone acquisition in animal models, and references 22 to 34 to support the claim that modern rough surfaces outperform the original ones clinically. Your job is not to chase every reference, but when a citation is supporting a central claim, something the entire rationale depends on, it is worth asking, what kind of study is behind that number? Is it an RCT in humans? A cohort? An animal study with 6 beagles? In this introduction, the preclinical evidence cited is from animal models. That is honest. The authors say so explicitly. Animal models showed faster bone apposition. Clinical studies confirmed it in humans. The chain is transparent. You can follow it and trust it. But carry this habit into every introduction you read. Citations are claims. Claims have varying levels of support, and the argument is only as strong as its weakest citation. The second skill is detecting gap inflation. Authors have an incentive to make their gap sound as large and urgent as possible. Signs of inflation, vague language like little is known when several studies exist. Selectively citing only papers that support the gap. Framing a minor limitation as a complete absence of evidence. In Buser 2017, the gap is honest. Long-term data beyond 10 years for SLA implants in a well-defined population is genuinely scarce. The claim is proportionate. The stage is not bigger than the study deserves. But ask this question in every introduction you read. Is this gap real or is it constructed? Is the problem as urgent as the authors suggest, or are they building a bigger stage than the study actually needs? By the end of the introduction, you should be able to answer 3 questions. What is already known about this topic? What is missing? And why does that gap matter clinically? And what exactly did this study set out to do? If you can answer those 3 questions, you have read the introduction correctly. You have not just absorbed background information, you have understood the argument. In Buser 2017, the answers are clear. What is known? Osseointegration works. Modern rough surfaces outperform original surfaces. Short and medium-term data on SLA is strong. What is missing? 10-year data in a well-defined, partially edentulous population under standardized conditions. What does study set out to do? Provide exactly that data. 3 questions, 3 answers. Introduction done. Now here's something worth remembering. A well-written introduction like Buser 2017 makes the gap feel inevitable. Like, of course this study needed to exist. That is good scientific writing. But not every introduction you read will be this clean. Some will have gaps that feel manufactured. Some will cite selectively. Some will make a study of 40 patients sound like it is solving a crisis. Your job is not to accept the argument. Your job is to evaluate it. And now you have the tools to do that. The introduction told you what the study is trying to prove and why. Now comes the most important question in the entire paper. Did they design the study in a way that can actually answer that question? That is the methods section. And that is episode 5, How to Read a Scientific Paper Series, Dental Depth.